Hello everyone, and welcome to The Negative. In this video, we're talking about Cinestill 800T, or as I like to call it, Cinestill 500T, because that's what it really is. If you're watching this video, I'm guessing you probably already know a little bit about Cinestill, but if not, it's really Kodak Vision 3 film, which has been stripped of the remjet layer, and thus you have Cinestill. And they label it as 800T, but it's actually a 500 speed film. The way I like to shoot Cinestill is with an orange filter. You don't have to use the orange filter, you can shoot it without it, but the film is tungsten film, so in daylight it's going to look really blue. So I personally like to filter it. The cool thing about shooting Cinestill in a TLR camera is that your taking lens, which is the bottom one, is going to have the filter over it. That's actually going to darken what you see in the viewfinder normally, and it's going to make the image in the viewfinder very orange. But with a TLR, you're actually looking through the top lens, and you won't have any of those effects because you're looking through a different lens. Technically, you could shoot anything with Cinestill. You can do portraits, landscapes, whatever. There's some films like Ektar, which if you shoot portraits with it, they're not going to have the greatest look because the color saturation, everything looks weird. But Cinestill has this really kind of unique color palette where it's not too saturated, and it kind of has this softness to it that I think works really well with pretty much everything. Another thing I noticed too with Cinestill is I always shoot it with the filter, and it seems like with the filter on, the flaring that's really characteristic of Cinestill seems to be kind of toned down. I haven't tested this for sure, but since I always shoot with the filter, I kind of attribute it to that. I also know that some people kind of really like that flaring effect of the Cinestill, but personally I'm not a huge fan. I think it looks better when the flaring is much more calm. Moving on to portraits, again, the softness, that kind of subtle saturation of Cinestill, I think works really well for portraits. Just for a little comparison, I also did shoot Portrait 800, and I do like the saturation and the color rendition in this one a lot too, but it's different, and I'll put them side by side so you can kind of see what the difference is between a normal portrait film and the Cinestill. Yeah, I definitely like both, but you can see that they are different. I really like that softness of the Cinestill. It's a little bit more muted, and it does make it a little bit trickier to kind of work with the colors when you're editing it, but when you get it right, I think it really works. For a little bit of detail on the filter, I use the 85 filter, and I believe there are different levels of how much warming it adds to the film, but I use the 85B, and it does have what's called a filter factor, meaning that it cuts out some of the light entering the camera. So you do have to increase the exposure. So for this particular one, you lose about half a stop, a little bit more than half a stop. So you go from 500 speed film to about 300. So I usually rate it at 400. At 400, you should pretty much be okay. Unless you go too deep on your shadows, like if you go too underexposed in your shadows, you're definitely going to lose some detail. But at 400, there should be plenty of latitude still. All of these were shot at 400, and I did bump the exposure up a little bit in Lightroom, but overall I still think they came out pretty good. Another thing I noticed with these too is if you look at her hands, you could kind of see that the film was trying to do that characteristic Cinestill flare, but I think maybe that filter once again did hold back that flaring a little bit. I think in this one you could kind of see that Cinestill softness in the saturation, but either way I still think it looks good. Overall, I really like Cinestill for portraits, and pretty much whatever you really want to shoot, I think looks pretty good on Cinestill. Landscapes might be a little bit different. I don't know. I'd have to shoot more landscapes with it, but I think its versatility is pretty wide. I am curious how Cinestill would look in its native ECN2 development, because these were all developed in C41, so of course that's not what it's supposed to be developed in. So the results are a little bit different, so I'm really curious to see what it would look like in ECN. Have you guys ever shot Cinestill before? And if not, would you give it a try? I definitely recommend it, and I think you all should try it. And let me know if you've tried it with an orange filter. I think it's much better with an orange filter. Comment below, and I'll see you guys next time on The Negative.